So you know how people say that the worst thing that happens to you can sometimes turn out to be the best thing? Yeah, I totally thought that was some cheesy inspirational quote until it actually happened to me. I called off my engagement to my fiancé after he requested a break to explore his ex. I sold our home and disappeared. And honestly, it was the best thing I've ever done. That sounds crazy. I know, but listen, the way my ex Liam 27, bless his heart, tells it, I'm the villain of the story. The truth is way more complicated than that. We were great together. For the most part, I'm Tessa, 26, and I met Liam 4 years ago at a birthday party. He was so sweet and steady, like, you could just tell he was the kind of guy who'd show up for you. No matter what, after a year, we moved in together, and it felt so easy. Like we were just on the same page. We talked about everything careers, getting married, having kids someday. My work as a freelance graphic designer was a little more flexible than his project manager gig, but we made it work. We had this quiet, nice life, not flashy, but I thought it was perfect. Last year, he proposed. It was just us at home. Nothing dramatic, and I was genuinely thrilled. I cried. I hugged him. I said yes. And we started planning our future together. We were so excited at first. We picked a fall wedding, a small guest list, and this gorgeous lakeside venue. I spent weeks making Pinterest boards, looking at gowns, and thinking about the details, like if we should have tulips or roses for the centerpieces. But after a few months, my excitement just fizzled. I don't know why exactly. Maybe it was just the stress of all the planning, but it felt like a chore. He'd ask me about bridesmaids or a cake, and I'd just say, not yet. I'm still thinking about it. Because honestly, he kept saying it was just stress. And I guess I told myself the same thing. What I didn't realize was that it wasn't just the wedding I was losing my enthusiasm for. It was us. I think the first real sign that something was off was a few months ago. We were out with some friends, and we were playing this super stupid TikTok game where you have to answer personal questions without laughing. Everything was fine until someone asked, if you could relive one relationship, which would it be? And without even thinking, I said, oh, probably Dylan. The whole room went silent. It was so awkward, and I totally regretted saying it the second it came out of my mouth. I tried to backtrack, I laughed it off and said something like, not that I'd want to. He was just a huge part of my past. But the damage was done. When we got home, Liam asked me about it. He wanted to know why I'd even think about Dylan. My college ex who cheated on me. I just shrugged it off, trying to make it seem like no big deal. It was just a silly game. Liam, don't take it so seriously, I said. But he just went quiet. I didn't want to start a fight over something so small. So I dropped it, but it hung in the air between us. After that, things just felt weird. I started noticing how much I was on my phone texting, scrolling through social media. I was always busy, always had something to do. I'd tell him I had work to catch up on, or that I was going to visit my mom. And he'd just say, okay. He never seemed to mind. He was so chill about everything. Almost too chill. I felt like I was becoming less of a priority to him, but I couldn't really say anything because I knew he'd just point out that I was the one making all the excuses. Honestly, I think I was trying to create some space between us without actually having a real conversation about it. It was easier that way. Then, last Friday, Liam came home early from work. The whole mood felt off. I was on the couch with my laptop, just staring at the screen, lost in my own thoughts. And he walks in all happy and says, hey, I'm home. And I just said, you're early. I know. I sound like such a bitch now, but I was so wrapped up in my own head. We sat there in silence for a while, and it was so suffocating. Finally, he asked if everything was okay, and I knew I had to say something. My stomach was in knots. I told him I needed to talk. I closed my laptop and just came out with it. I've been thinking about us, and about Dylan. I braced myself, but he just looked at me like I had two heads. He said, Dylan, are you serious? What about him? I explained that I just needed some time. I wanted to take a break and see if there was still something there with Dylan. He just stared at me, his face completely blank, holding a spatula in his hand like a complete idiot. He couldn't believe what I was saying. I mean, I get it. We were engaged, but I had to be sure. Right. He kept asking, "Are you out of your mind? You want to take a break and date your ex?" I tried to explain that it wasn't like that I just needed to know if I was making the right choice with him. I told him that if it didn't work out with Dylan, I'd come back. Looking back, that was a pretty arrogant thing to say. But I genuinely thought he'd wait for me. I mean, he was Liam. He was always so understanding. He just sat there, quiet for a long time. Then he asked, "So what does this break mean for you?" I explained that we needed space and that I needed to see if my feelings for Dylan were genuine. And then he said, "Wait, you're saying you need to date your ex, but I need to think about us. What kind of backward logic is that?" I just sighed. He was being so dramatic. "It's not that you did anything wrong, Liam. This is about me determining what I need." He kept pushing, saying that I was being ridiculous, that you don't just put your fiancé on hold. And honestly, I was getting annoyed. I told him, "I am not asking for permission. Liam, I'm telling you what I need." It felt like a power move, like I was finally taking control of my life. He stood up and started pacing, and I could tell he was getting angry. He asked if I was just going to pack my bags and go to Dylan's place. And I told him I wasn't sure yet, but I needed clarity. I needed to know I was making the right decision for myself. Then he started laughing. And it was this really cruel laugh. "What about what you owe me?" "Tessa, we're engaged." I told him I never said he wasn't good enough. But if we were going to spend the rest of our lives together, I needed to be sure. And right now, I wasn't. It was hard to say, but it was the truth. It was like a dam broke inside of me. And all the doubt I'd been feeling came rushing out. He finally stopped pacing and looked at me. "You know what? Sure. Take a break." I was so surprised. I expected a huge fight, for him to scream at me, for him to beg me to stay. But he just nodded, his face completely blank. "Okay," he said, "if that's what you need." I didn't know what to do. He wasn't giving me anything to work with. I just got up, went into the bedroom, and started throwing some things into a bag. I told him I'd stay at my mom's for a while and that we could talk when I had some time. He just said okay again. So I just left. I thought I was leaving him there to worry, to miss me, and to realize he couldn't live without me. I never thought he'd actually do something. I thought he'd be a wreck. I mean, that's what happens when you leave someone you're engaged to. Right. They fall apart. They beg you to come back. But a few days went by, and he wasn't calling or texting. I started with a few casual texts. "Hope you're doing okay." Nothing. He didn't even respond. I was with Dylan, and it was fine. I guess the spark wasn't really there. It was all so different. I missed Liam. I missed our life. And I missed the way he just was. I started to panic. I called him, but he didn't pick up. I was getting more and more anxious. But I couldn't show Dylan that I was freaking out. Then my mom called me, and she sounded super confused. She asked if I was moving out of Liam's place, because a bunch of boxes had just been dropped off on her doorstep. She said there was a note that said, "This is your stuff. Good luck with Dylan." That's when I completely lost it. I called him and was like, "What are you doing? Why are you acting like this is over?" He was so calm, too calm. "Because it is over, Tessa. You made your decision, and now I'll make mine." I started to cry, telling him I just needed time to think, that he was being too hasty, and that this wasn't what I meant when I asked for a break. He asked me what I was expecting, that he'd just wait for me like a puppy, while I drove my ex. He told me that if I realized I wanted him back, I would have learned a valuable lesson about not taking people for granted. Then he just hung up on me. I found out later that he was telling our friends a very different version of the story. I was telling everyone we were on a temporary separation so we could both grow as individuals. He was just saying Tessa felt she needed to discuss things with her ex before committing to marriage. I decided I deserved more than being someone's backup plan. It was so basic, but it worked. Everyone saw me as a flake who was too immature to handle a real relationship. My freelance business relies on referrals, and a lot of my clients are mutual friends or people in the same tech circles as Liam. A few of them started pushing back on projects. And one of my biggest clients, Sarah, called me for coffee. She's a colleague of Liam's, and she wanted the real story. I tried to stick to my narrative, but I could tell she wasn't buying it. I just didn't have a good enough explanation. She never came out and said it, but I could feel her pulling away. I was losing clients, and I knew it was all because of him. I tried to get ahead of the story. I started posting stuff on social media about finding yourself and following your heart. I was trying to make it look like this was my choice, that I was happy and thriving, but Liam was playing a different game. He posted a single update about how he'd accepted a position in San Francisco and that he was excited for a new chapter. He didn't say anything bad about me. He just made it clear that he was moving on. That's what really hurt. He was moving on, and he wasn't looking back. The last straw was when Dylan, being Dylan, posted a picture of us together at the restaurant where Liam and I had our first date. I almost died. The post didn't stay up long, but a lot of people saw it, and the last shred of respect they had for me was gone. Even my own sister called me. She said, "I'm so sorry. Tessa, you deserve better." She was talking about Dylan, of course, but I knew she meant the whole situation. I went to Liam's office a few days ago, totally distraught. I saw on social media that Dylan was still his flaky self, flirting with other women, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I started crying, telling Liam that I'd made a huge mistake, that I was scared of commitment, and that he was the best thing that ever happened to me. He just looked at me with this empty expression. "No, Tessa," he said. "The nicest thing that ever occurred to me was when you revealed your true colors before we married." He was so cold. I tried to argue, telling him we could fix it and that I'd go to counseling, but he just shook his head. He said this wasn't about Dylan anymore. It was about me thinking I could keep him as a backup while I considered my options. "That's not love," he said. "It's convenience." And then he just let me go. It was a complete gut punch. I went back home to my mom's place, and that's when I found out he had sold our house. Our house, the one we picked out together, the one I decorated. He didn't even tell me. I heard about it from our mutual friends, and I didn't believe it until I drove by and saw the new owners moving in. It was like a nightmare. All the clients I had lined up found other designers. I was completely unhireable. Then Dylan contacted me. Of all people, he said he was ending things because, as he put it, if she could do this to you, she could do it to anyone. The irony of it all, he said I'd been messaging him for months before I asked for the break, laying the groundwork for my little backup plan. I hadn't even realized how obvious I'd been. I finally had to admit to myself that I had completely messed up. I tried to email Liam, asking for some old photos we had in a shared cloud storage. I was hoping he'd respond and that we could talk. But he had already deleted it all. He wrote back, "You're right. Those years taught me what I don't want from a spouse. Thank you for the lesson. It was so harsh." Some of our mutual friends think he's being too tough, that he should be more understanding, but he's just gone. He's in San Francisco, loving his new job, and he even adopted a dog named Zeus. He's completely moved on, and I'm here, staying at my parents' house, with no clients and no prospects. My portfolio website, the one he set up and maintained, is down because the hosting expired and I can't figure out how to renew it. Honestly, it feels like I'm paying for my mistakes in a way I never saw coming. I know what I did was wrong. I should have just been honest with him. But I was scared, and I wanted to be sure. I never thought he'd actually leave. I thought he'd wait for me, and I thought I could have my cake and eat it too. I was so wrong. I'm telling you, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing, because it forces you to face the truth. And the truth is, I was a coward. I took him for granted, and I lost him because of it. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I'm trying to figure it out. It's just hard to believe that this all happened because I wasn't brave enough to tell the truth.